first and foremost, what do you just make of the concentration here that is certainly playing out in the markets right now, as long Mag 7 seems to be one of the most crowded trades?
Yeah, it's certainly something we keep an eye on, but I would say that if you had been worried about that concentration or used it as a reason to get out of the market at any point over the last couple of years, it would have been a mistake. I think that we hand-wring over this too much. I think that instead we should be celebrating that some of the biggest and most innovative companies are in our markets. Concentration risk or heavy concentration has not been a good forward indicator over the last 40 or 50 years based on the data that we've seen. So it's something to keep an eye on. It maybe makes the market a little bit more fragile to something like Nvidia having a bad stretch run, but it's not something that we worry about too much.
Well, then what do you worry about when it comes to the Mag 7? Because they've obviously had a record-breaking year to date. I think the latest I checked up over 75% year to date here. Is that going to be the case for 2025, regardless of the macro environment in terms of what the Fed may be doing?
Yeah, look, I mean, these names have largely proven somewhat insensitive to rate moves, unlike other growthy names. I mean, most of them are very cash rich and low debt. They have big, wide moats, and they're trading on secular themes, not the more cyclical nature of interest rates or, the economy over the next 12 months. I think the biggest question for 2025 about these names is, all right, we know the story. They've spent aggressively billions and billions building up the infrastructure to support this new AI world that we're entering. I think the thing that investors are going to want to start to see is some ROI on that investment, right? These have traditionally not been big CapEx names, and they are now. So there's a lot of dollars going into the ground, into real things. And I think we're going to want to see whether it's the killer AI app or the big step forward in productivity, or business leaders coming out and saying, this is how we're integrating this into our businesses today.
Right.
We haven't quite seen that yet. So that's going to be big for 2025.
And real quick, Ross, last week we heard Microsoft talking about how the chip shortage has come to an end. And this morning I was taking a look and you can see GPUs popping up on eBay. That seems like a bearish signal for chip stocks moving forward. What is your thought specifically on what chip demand could do to some of these AI names?
Yeah, it's a great question. The chip stocks and the semis tend to be a lot more cyclical between supply and demand. I would still be interested in owning them in 2025 with the idea that there could be a lot of volatility. This is a secular theme, right? AI is a big long-term theme. So you need to be able to ride the ups and downs. I would still want to be owning these, not just in 2025, but for the rest of the decade as well.
Ross, as you think about more broadly some of the themes that you were mentioning, and it's remarkable right now thinking about what the application is that could actually be the game and the kind of ground shifter here, as you think about what businesses would leverage versus what household consumers would say is our go-to AI app. And there will be several ones, but as we kind of think about the stack and the applications that sit on top of the models, that sit on top of the chips, who is best positioning themselves right now for the killer app, perhaps, that could come about and ultimately be able to add on to an existing install base that's already out in the market?
Yeah, it's the right question to ask. Unfortunately, it's a very tricky one. I mean, you start by looking at the companies building the infrastructure, the hyperscalers. I mean, they have the capital and they'll have the infrastructure underneath to kind of be able to be first movers. They have pretty vertically integrated, kind of supply chains up and down what they do. So I think that those companies are well positioned. The less satisfying answer is that company might not exist yet, or it might be an early stage venture company. I mean, when you think about what mobile internet did, the companies that really capitalized, say like an Uber, didn't exist before we had these kind of the stack built up, to use your framing. So I think that a lot of those companies that end up building the killer apps, whether it's consumer facing or B2B, might not even exist yet, or they might be being built out in some garage somewhere. There will be a lot of opportunity once the infrastructure is built, because again, it's billions and billions of investment. There's only a couple of companies that can do that. But once that's available to developers and coders out there, there's going to be a million opportunities for smaller companies to take some share.
All right, Ross, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.